Welcome to the Afterglow podcast, a space to practice yoga nidra informed by the ideas of Carl Jung and internal family systems. Each week we will work on a different life theme, giving us the opportunity to discover vast inner landscapes, sitting with all that life has to offer as we explore who we are. May the afterglow be as bright as the journey is deep. Whether in an acute panic attack or experiencing chronic subtle anxiety, one of the best practical tools that we can use is to put down an anchor. As we scramble, often unaware, for something to help us find a bit of peace and reassurance, this technique can help ground you, reducing some of the noise and confusion that anxiety is so good at stirring up. Today I'm going to talk about how having an internal place to return to be able to close our eyes and to access as we need it when anxiety strikes, is going to be able to transform our relationship with our behaviors and with anxiety itself. Let's dive in. Anxiety, like depression, takes many forms. We can be so acutely anxious that we are outside of our ability to control ourselves. Or it can be so subtle and unconscious that we hardly realize our behaviors stem from a source of deep discomfort or fear. Anxiety can be inherited. We are given epigenetic familial burdens that can arise suddenly from the depths of the unconscious and take over our entire lives. Anxiety can be a symptom of lack of boundaries or complex post-traumatic stress. It can be a result of sensitivity to sound or texture. Sometimes we are able to look back and be really grateful for our anxiety. Perhaps it's led us to some internal paths and helped us deepen our connection with ourselves. A Jungian psychiatrist once told me that we don't really understand anxiety and that we don't know why antidepressants help alleviate the symptoms of anxiety. And I'm pro-medication when necessary. I think that removing the shame around taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, I think it's really important. I live in a modern world and I agree to engage with the medicines of this world as needed. I also believe that medicines can only take us so far. I think that as soon as we are able, we should get off the medicines. And I think that we should never stop trying to resolve the tension in our psyche. And this requires inner work so that that tension can be transmuted. Whether this is through talk therapy or a meditation practice, the tension needs to be released before we can be free of the neuroses. At this point, I should give a quick disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor. In no way am I representing myself as having professional opinions that listeners should follow. What we discuss here today is for educational or information purposes, and it does not substitute seeking professional medical advice. And I am in no way representing practices or results as replicable or scientific. Always seek professional medical advice and ensure that you receive proper treatment for all physiological and psychological symptoms and conditions. The objective of this week's theme is to provide you with an anchor that you can put down when you're feeling overwhelmed. The Yoga Nidra practice is the start, and it's a great place to return to. But the idea is that in the midst of a storm of anxiety, you will be able to close your eyes and find this thing or place that you can return to for security, for soothing, to contain, to calm, to put things into perspective, whatever it is that's needed in the moment. An anchor should not be a person or an animal. An anchor should be a practice, a symbol, or an internal place. I'll go into more detail of each of these, and of course you can have more than one anchor, but we'll be focusing on one in particular today. Some examples of practices that can be anchors. The obvious one is going to talk therapy. This is an amazing anchor. Hobbies like painting, reading poetry, hiking. Daily prayer is a fantastic anchor. Or chanting, or doing Abhyanga massage. Exercise is probably the most common anchor that everyone uses, but I will put an asterisk on this one, and in fact all of them, because if you're doing anything under duress, if there is a sense of obligation hanging over it, then it isn't an anchor, it's a chore. Any of these can be guilt-induced and will end up creating more tension than alleviating. What we are looking for is something that we can regularly return to, something that stands outside of our day-to-day life, that we elect to do, we're excited to go back to. And this acts as a third place, a place that is able to frame the stuff of our lives into a new perspective, reducing our idealism, removing our disappointment. We're able to see our lives with less judgment over where they are and the state that they're in. A place where we are able to access a part of ourselves that is perennial, unswayed by the fluctuations of jobs, relationships, and states of health. A place to access a more stable and reliable position within ourselves. And also getting access to a part of us that is more stoic, compassionate, fair, even-keeled. And some examples of symbols that can be anchors. Of course, religious symbols are the most common form of this. A crucifix, a flag, a Magen David. And so are religious figures, the image of Shiva or Krishna, the Buddha, the Pope, Mother Mary. Travelers wearing St. Christopher's around their necks are engaging in a form of anchoring. You can hold onto a St. Christopher around your neck in a moment of uncertainty when you're traveling in a foreign country. It's late at night and you're in a small town and you don't know where to go because you've just missed the last bus. But holding onto that St. Christopher in that moment gives us an anchor. Unconsciously, we're hoping to draw some archetypal energy, some overarching wisdom from this symbol, that we may take ourselves to safety, recover the situation. I think people do this every day by deifying historical figures. They become a symbol within our minds of liberation or equality. They're an internal symbol that we can call upon in a moment of sadness about the state of the world, and we can draw strength from it. It can help lessen our anxiety, that feeling of not knowing what to do or feeling exasperated with the environment and the circumstances. I think that these chosen symbols are all archetypal. There is an inherent message in the symbolism of each. Each symbol holds a specific set of characteristics, and one or two will especially speak to us. It can be telling what symbols a person chooses in terms of what they need more of in themselves. For example, Durga is a Hindu goddess, and she is very protective, a great symbol for someone who is sick and tired of being taken advantage of. They can evoke the image of Durga when they want to lay down better boundaries. And the opposite is also true. People can overly identify with a symbol, taking it on as a doctrine, following it in blind faith. For example, a cross wearer can be overly self-sacrificing, leaving nothing left for themselves. An anchor should not be your entire ship, rather a necessary weight that helps withstand the external forces, even if those forces are self-created. And that leads us to some examples of internal places that can be anchors. We've all heard of the idea of going to your happy place, and it's pretty much the same idea. I can't give you a hobby or tell you what symbol to use so that you can find solace and support when you're in a state of internal crisis or prolonged anxiety. But I can give you a yoga nidra to find a space inside of you, and that space is a place that you can return to just by closing your eyes. And this is a place that never ages or wears, a place that no one else can enter but you, a place that is free of the demands of the world and capable of gifting you an internal infrastructure that you can rely on, a place to build self-esteem and let go of some of the narratives that follow us around our day-to-day lives. The nurturing home of a happy childhood, a loving parent, an encouraging teacher, a strong marriage, and a friendship that bears witness to the length and breadth of our lives. These external things that we are gifted one or more of help give us a stronger sense of self, a place of belonging or safety that we can take refuge in. They give us a sense of confidence and self-worth. And we know when we lack some of them because we see the symptoms showing up in our lives. Creating an internal place is an anchor that we can gift ourselves. It relies on no external fortunes and is already available. It has always been available. In psychology and art, the ocean is often used as a metaphor for the unconscious. It is not necessary that we go with our anchor all the way down to the bottom of the sea. Rather, we should let the anchor be the point of connection. And what I mean is that the anchor is not a method for deep exploration of the unconscious mind. It is not a vehicle for self-knowing. It is a tool with a purpose. The inner space that we create in Yoga Nidra is a place that is filled with unconditional love and encouragement. It is a place for compassion and understanding. It is a place for gathering ourselves, reminding ourselves of who we are when the outer world tries to dictate what we should be, or even our conscious mind trying to dictate who we should be. It is a place to assert our values and take pride in our accomplishments. There are other methods for deep analysis, for wrestling with ourselves, for balancing the tension of the opposites, for being accountable or unleashing anger and fear. This is not the space for that. The space we will find in the Yoga Nidra in a few days is a space for soothing, for comfort. It is a reminder of our worth and our ability to exist unburdened by neurotic tendencies. In the way that we are able to love a baby, to care so much for a little being that does nothing, and it is not required to do anything. In the same way, we create this soft space where we are simply a being alive in this world. When I upload the episode in a few days, you will discover this space. You can act as interior designer to some degree. And I encourage you to also allow the unconscious to reveal this space for you. It may change subtly over time. For example, it could be a walled garden and it is filled with fruit trees. You walk among the dappled shadows of the leaves and you marvel at the different types of fruits, enjoying eating them, enjoying the feeling of fecundity. And maybe one day you notice that there is a pool in the garden and you swim in it. It is okay for there to be these small shifts, where in time you also discover an area that is a playground or a window through the garden wall to look out into the land beyond. These small shifts are fine because the core energy of the space remains intact. If you have a spiritual practice, a higher guide, a being or deity, they can appear in the space to offer you unconditional love and support. Otherwise, it is just you. When we are in a state of uncertainty, Jung suggests very simply that we do the next right thing. Many people who have gone through an Alcoholics Anonymous program will have been told this, and that is because AA was heavily influenced by Jungian principles. Do the next right thing is exceedingly good advice when someone is in a storm of confusion, anxious about future outcomes, overwhelmed by the complexes that are being triggered, experiencing decision paralysis. I don't know enough to answer the chicken and the egg question of whether being in anxiety triggers our complexes or if our complexes trigger anxiety spirals. Likely it is both. Jungian psychoanalyst Joseph Lee said something that I think is excellent advice. He said that when a complex is triggered in us, the best possible thing that we can do is sit on our hands and shut up. So I'm going to give you an example, a hypothetical example. Here is a man, and he has a complex around money and his ability to earn and provide for his family. And this could be for any number of reasons, but we happen to have a crystal ball, and we are able to see everything, know everything. So let's say that his money complex is mixed in with his father complex. His father was greedy and powerful and used money to control people. So the man has banished parts of himself into the shadow to ensure that he won't become like his father. In his day-to-day conscious life, he isn't all that cognizant of this unconscious mechanism that he is employing. He thinks that he has tried really hard to earn a living and do well, and his repeated failures are not indicators of shadow, but indicators of some inescapable truth that he is a loser, a failure. And his best bet in life is to try to get through it with nobody noticing what a terrible failure he is. This man gets what we all get, a big bill for something, let's say his roof. He has other financial responsibilities, of course, and this bill has come at a very bad time. He isn't earning much, or he is looking for work, and he already has pressure on him to deliver financial resources to his family. Receiving a big bill can make anybody feel anxious. But his money complex, and therefore his father complex, are triggered by his anxiety, and he spirals out of control. because this bill is a reminder of all of his failings. It is a reminder that he is essentially flawed in some unforgivable way and that his future is doomed. He feels perhaps on some level that he was robbed of something in childhood. He isn't entirely sure what, because it is still in the shadow, but he is sure that parts of him are missing or broken or overall worthy of shame. He is overcome by all of these emotions and he has a meltdown. This meltdown reaches boiling point and he calls the company that sent the expensive bill and he screams at them. Then, to make himself feel better, he makes an expensive purchase, trying to feel in control. Maybe he even yells at his partner or his children. And perhaps he ignores a call from his father, not wanting to engage with the source of his tension without even realizing it. Anything to push this feeling of shame away. As we do more inner work, we can get a better sense of when we are in a complex. We can heed Joseph Lee's advice and sit on our hands and shut up. Because we have this crystal ball, we can tell that this man isn't angry. He is afraid. That fear has lived alongside him probably since early childhood and comes through in all forms of anxiety. The anxiety that leads him away from his financially successful jobs is the same anxiety that gets piqued by the bill, sending him into a spiral. Internal family systems would seek to negotiate with that anxiety, encouraging it to relax its position so that we are able to get in touch with the fear that it is protecting. The fear that the man has, the fear that he will become his father, can be brought back into the conscious mind. It can become a part of our self-awareness, a valid voice that can take part in internal discussions as we make choices. But it is no longer an unconscious driver in our lives. Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. By having this internal space, this anchor to return to, we are able to essentially sit on our hands and shut up. We are able to return to the memory, the knowing that we are a being worthy of love and security, removed of shame and narratives about who we are or why we are uniquely broken. Through therapy, through inner work, we can bring these unconscious elements forward and integrate them. But in the meantime, we can do less damage to our nervous systems by pausing to find this internal anchor. And we can also do less damage to our relationships, and we also stop deepening the grooves within our minds, the grooves of thoughts and beliefs that we are incapable, that we are less than, or that we are completely overwhelmed by the circumstances. You do not need to always be in a state of crisis to put down your anchor. If you have chronic anxiety, close your eyes and return to the space as often as you wish. Put on a recording of my Yoga Nidra if it is easier to stay present in this internal space with the help of a guiding voice. Or if you feel comfortable to, simply closing your eyes, returning to this space, and being able to give yourself a break from the day-to-day stories, to give yourself a reminder that there is something much more unchanging. Like the deepest parts of the ocean floor, there is no weather, and this part stays stable. Most of us are far more anxious than we like to admit. Avoidance is a very good indicator of anxiety. Avoiding a conversation that we know we need to have, or being overly avoidant of germs and contaminants. Control is another great indicator of anxiety. Gymming or exercising too much. Dietary control, treating rules and schedules with near religious reverence. If we know that we have a hard time with some of these things, return to your inner anchor. And to be clear, of course, these external anxieties are often coming from a space that does need attention, potentially even intervention with an analyst. If we are obsessively controlling our food intake and our exercise because we have anxiety around our physical shape, I am in no way suggesting that these are simply stories that can just be brushed under the rug. What I'm suggesting is that we give ourselves time and space to return to something that is without the story. And that when we come back into our day-to-day life, we are often able to reframe things. We're able to bring back a memory of being unburdened. We are able to sit for longer periods of time in a state of discomfort as we work through something that we were previously unable to work through. So I'll give an example, a really common example of how that could look. Let's say that every time you start a creative project, you get distracted and you don't complete it. And that anxiety is distracting you. It's pulling you away from what it believes is some inevitable truth that you're a failure and you're not very good at whatever this creative thing is. And of course you're not good at it if you never do it or you never complete anything. But you really want to be a person who engages in rewarding creative projects. And so by having this memory of a place where you're unburdened by any of these narratives, where you were free from this constraint, that memory gets carried into your day-to-day life. And the next time that you are working on a creative project, the memory of how it feels to be unburdened by these thoughts is now with you. And maybe you do get distracted, but you come back. And maybe you get distracted again and you come back. And you stand a much higher chance of continually returning to the project because you have this memory. Ideally a fresh memory because you keep returning to this place, giving yourself time to take rest from the daily struggle of anxiety. Jung had an experience of this where he was going through fainting spells every time he tried to concentrate. He didn't go to school for several months because of it. And through determination, he sat at his desk, he concentrated, he fainted. He sat at his desk, he concentrated, he fainted. And he did this in the experience of one day. He was able to overcome these fainting spells and return to school. And there is a trick to this, and it's a very simple trick. It's patience and perseverance. And being able to return to this place, this internal anchor, is giving yourself much higher chance of being able to perceive your complexes, to loosen the grip of anxiety little bit by little bit. And paradoxically, the more we return to it, the less we need to. Ahead of the Yoga Nidra in a few days, I suggest trying to track moments when you pick up in yourself a sense of avoidance or control. My assumption is that you already have a good sense, and I recommend journaling, or at the very least just making mental notes when you clock how many times a day you are wanting to avoid or to control. And I'm going to recommend that throughout all of this, you try avoid diagnosing your loved ones. It is extremely easy paying attention to our own anxieties, how we control, how we avoid, that we, in an effort to avoid doing this, begin to seek out evidence in others that we are not uniquely troubled with this. And I guarantee you that you are not uniquely troubled with anxious behavior that drives you to control or avoid. But if you do see it in your loved ones, that is natural. It's normal to start picking these things up, and it's always easier to see it from the outside than from the inside. And if you do have big opinions about their faults, I suggest that you suggest to them that they listen to this episode. Because even if you're right, there is no surer way of delaying someone's ability to make the unconscious conscious than by pointing it out. So just sit within yourself and tend to your own garden, not worrying about what is overgrown in someone else's. And as uncomfortable as this task may feel, I guarantee you that the Yoga Nidra in a few days is going to be extremely enjoyable and relaxing. Thank you for joining us for this weekly companion episode. It really does add to the experience that you will have in Yoga Nidra. The Yoga Nidra will be uploaded in a few days, giving you time to reflect on the questions that I've asked you. Please subscribe to receive notifications for this new Yoga Nidra episode, as well as for future ones. Thank you for adding your light and kindness to the world, and for doing this important inner work. May the afterglow be as bright as the journey is deep. See you soon.